Hey everyone, good morning, welcome. Today is our Net Plus day. We'll be talking all things Net Plus. Today is you get a little bit of a treat. It's one of those rare sessions where I just happened to take the exam recently. So I'll spend the first part of the session just kind of giving you a recap and an idea of what I saw without going too much into detail. And then, if you have any questions or anything like that, we'll get into those, and then I'll talk a little bit about the resources that I use and how those helped as well. So go ahead and get started. All right. So firstly, it's been a couple years since I've taken Net Plus. Okay. I have taken the last three versions of this exam. So I've taken the 005, the 006, and most recently I've just taken the 007. Okay. Um, my perspective on those, from a progressive standpoint, is I did see some carryover. Okay, I don't know what that means to to most of you, but to me, for someone that's taken like a earlier version of the exam, and then you take another one, and then you see something that you may have seen, on the first exam, it just tells me that there is some carryover in that. There is a lot of concepts that don't change. So, you just want to make sure that the core of the information, you get that. And then, when it comes to the updates and things like that, obviously there's not going to be another one for another at least 2 years. But, it's carryover. A lot of the concepts stay the same. So it's really about getting the core of the information and then going from there. But, okay, so my exam experience as a whole. Performance-based questions. I got four of them. Okay, so a few more than I got on the 1002, but I haven't seen more than five in the last. I don't know how many exams since I was first certifying. I haven't seen more than five performance-based questions. So don't expect to see too many of those. Okay, where when you come down here to types of questions and you see multiple choice and performance-based, you're going to see probably three or four at the most, and then you're going to go into your multiple choice. Okay, so I did the same thing that I always do, and it just works for me. Okay, so I don't even mess with those. I skip right past them. I go straight into the multiple choice. I gain my momentum there. Okay. But while we're on it, I do want to address something because we talked about this probably a month ago. I can't even remember the student that brought it up. He had just taken it and he actually passed it. But he brought up this VLAN question where you have this VLAN over here, and you have this VLAN over here, and then you have two PCs, a max of two PCs in a server. Does anyone remember that question that we were talking about? Okay. So that question, for some reason, I had no clue what they wanted me to do. Okay, I'm not even going to sit here and pretend that I did. It's just the way that they structured it, to me, it made no sense. All right, so my advice, if you see something that looks like that on the exam, save it for last. Okay, don't try to figure it out. That's what I did. I did it last. And I may have done it right. I think I did it right. I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't want to give away too much of it. It's just, it has to do with VLANs. And I remember someone bringing up that question, and I had no clue what he was talking about then, and I had no clue what they were talking about when I was sitting there taking the exam. Okay, so that's something you may want to watch out for. But other than that, the rest of them were pretty explanatory. And if you watch the session that we did last week, you'll have a pretty decent idea of what you'll see when it comes to those. So moving forward, the multiple choice questions, I'll say this, okay, the CompTIA, they kind of keep their same format, the way they word questions and things like that. It doesn't really change much. Sometimes it's hard to understand what they're getting at. This is what I'll say. Look for the keywords. I see them on every exam that I take. All right. Sometimes you get confused by the way that they're asking the questions. But if you do your homework, all right, and what I mean by that is, the resources that are provided to you. Like, there's a lot of good stuff in all of them. So just make sure that you're using them. But the one that I'll point out is CertMaster. And I think we were talking about this last week or the week before. I didn't give it the credit that I should have until I actually used it and then went and took an exam. But it hit a lot of key points that you need to make sure that you're comfortable with going into the exam. That's what I like about that resource. It's easy to get hung up in like troubleshooting or subnetting. A lot of people get hung up on it, right? By the way, I did see a couple subnetting questions, right? So that's one of the main differences between this version and the last. I didn't see any on the 006. Anything that even referenced it. On the 007, I did see a few though. So, but it's just, it's the simple stuff. We talked about it last week, right? It's nothing too difficult. You just have to make sure you understand the concept and you know how to determine, okay, how many, which flash am I going to use if I need 30 devices, or, vice versa. Okay, so they give you a slash, how many devices are you going to have? Okay, like simple stuff like that. I don't want to call it simple. It's simple once you get it. Okay, I'll put it like that. Once you get it and you got the repetition, it's pretty simple. Okay. So I did see a couple questions there, and then the OSI model. Okay, this is something that we were talking about last week. I believe all of the examples of questions that you may see concerning the OSI model, I saw them. Right, I gave you a perfect blueprint of what to expect. Okay, I think I gave you like 4 different examples, and I got like all 4 of them. So, yeah, that last session is a really good one to watch. Okay, what I want to say is, for me, okay, and I didn't use too many. Like I said, I'm not new to this stuff, so I have a baseline knowledge. And then, obviously, you don't want to just go and take an exam with just your experience. You want to make sure that you go through and touch up whatever areas you need to. Okay, so for me, CertMaster did a great job doing that, and I'm glad that I used it. Normally, I'll just kind of use like bits and pieces of a resource and kind of pull what I can from it and then move on. But for me, CertMaster just kind of hit all the areas that, okay, because it gives you an idea of what you already know, right? So, okay, yeah, most of the stuff I already know, then you have this other area that's kind of great. Like, you get it a little bit, but maybe not to the extent that you need to, okay? So CertMaster helps with that, and then it also, on those ones that you do get wrong, which a lot of our students have already kind of pointed out, like, it's a really good teaching tool for telling you, okay, why? This is the information, right? This is why you got this wrong, right? It's a very good tool. So I'm gonna give it credit again that CertMaster really helped me a lot when it came to this exam, because I saw a lot of stuff that I would have been iffy on if I didn't see it in this exam or on CertMaster. Okay, so definitely a good tool. Just got back from, okay, Renee just took Net Plus. Okay, how did you do? Awesome. Great news. So I'm actually giving my recap right now. If you want, you can give yours, once I'm done, and we can kind of get your perspective on things. So Brian's saying, like, about CertMaster, so A+, touches all. Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Every objective, every sub-objective is covered on that resource, so it's hard to get caught off guard by anything. Right? That's my point. It covers everything. So, even if you're good on like 80% of this stuff, there's still another 20 that you're a little iffy on. It's going to be covered in CertMaster. That's why I like that resource. Okay. So troubleshooting. My biggest takeaway from the exam would be, I want to say troubleshooting. Even though I felt like it was more well-rounded than the last, on the 006, I felt like it was a ton of troubleshooting. It was just every two, three questions was a troubleshooting exam. Not to that extent on the 007. Not to that extent. I did see a decent amount of troubleshooting. Okay, and the same thing that we talked about, last week, it rings true. You just want to make sure that you understand where you are in the process and where you go from where you are. Right. First, identify where you are, and then where do you go from where you are. And that's what troubleshooting kind of boils down to. They give you the signs and the symptoms enough to figure out what you need to do, as long as you know where you are. Right. So they'll tell you what you tried. If you're not at the beginning, then they'll say, yeah, you tried this. They may not say it like that. Um, so they'll give you a hint. That's my point. So, was someone asking the question? Okay. Sorry. Just hearing stuff. Okay. What else? What stood out on this exam? They're going to test your knowledge on the concept. Okay. So just, I mean, be prepared for that. I mean, that's not a news flash, right? But they're going to test your knowledge on all of this stuff. Okay. So just staying up here and just the first objective here, like all of this stuff, I got a few port questions. If you know your ports, you'll get those. Okay. Well, I think we did an exercise last week that just kind of focused on getting ports, right? If you know your ports, it will be easy for you. Okay, they'll be easy questions for you. Secondly, though, understand what they do, because it's not always that cut and dry on Net Plus, right? They're not just going to say, okay, which port is just, which port number is associated with secure cell, right? They're not going to say that cut and dry. They may say, you want to be able to securely remote into another access point. Which port are you going to open? Okay, so you have to understand, not only which ports the protocols are associated with, but you have to understand the application of them, what you're going to, why you're going to use secure shell, or that question will go right over your head. You know what I mean? So know your ports. If you know them, they'll be easy. They'll be easy ones for you. Okay. OSI model, we kind of talked about what you'll see there. Main thing, just make sure, like I said, you can match these up. Make sure you know what's going on at each layer. Make sure you understand which devices, right? Like switches, routers, hubs, things like that. Make sure you understand, which layer they're operating at. Okay, and then if you see those questions, those will be easy too, right? And then another thing that we talked about last week is right, what you're working with at each layer. All right, they almost got me with one on this one. All right, it was bits, right? Bits, frames, packet segments, right? They asked me a question about TCP's packets, and it threw me off because I know that TCP is at the transport layer, right? It's at layer 4. That's where it's operating at. But what threw me off was the packets, right? I was having a problem with, I forgot what it was, but it threw me off because they had two different things that are operating at two different layers, and then you have to go back to the question and remember what they're asking you. Okay, so just remember to keep a lookout for stuff like that, especially with the OSI model and with troubleshooting, things where there's different steps. Don't get confused by the wording. Always go back to the question and refer to what they're asking you about. All right. What else? Like I said, I didn't see much subnetting. It was on there. Okay, so your configurations, make sure you understand, how to configure an access point, right? One that's pretty close to another. Okay, I won't go more than that. The antenna placement questions, I've seen that on all 3 exams. Okay, so make sure you understand your antennas and um, where you would place them, where you would put them. I'll go back to the same example that I used for talking about this question, the hands-on simulator. Okay, it doesn't really look much like the question, but the concept is the same. So this wireless antenna placement one, make sure you understand your antennas, where you're going to place them, and I can't stress this enough. Pay close attention. If you get a question where the performance-based questions at the beginning, where you have to do configurations, pay very close attention to all the information because they're telling you exactly how they want you to do it. If you know how to do it, you won't have any problem with it. But if you skip over something, you may miss something, and it'll affect your grade. So just pay very close attention. That's why I say save it for last, so you're not thinking about the rest of the exam while you're trying to do a question like the performance-based ones, right? You should already be through that, and then that way when you get to these, hopefully you have enough time where you don't have to stress and you can take your time and read the questions and do everything step by step. And so that's my approach because I know that I'm a skimmer and it's easy for me to miss important information when you're a skimmer. So when I get questions like these, the performance-based ones, I do it one step at a time. And in that way, that's the best way to make sure that I don't miss anything. I don't skip it. All right. Okay. Let's see. My overall impression is the exams, it can be difficult, right? I can see why it would be difficult for a lot of people. Okay. It's passable. You just have to, if you take your time, read the questions, if you know your information well enough, you should be able to get enough of, I don't want to call them easy ones, because to be honest with you, like my first pass through that exam, I wasn't really comfortable with as many questions as I felt like I should be. But after I went back and I did the performance-based questions, and I went back through the second time, I just kind of went through just to see how comfortable I was with each question and went back to the ones that I flagged. I felt a lot more comfortable with the answers that I picked the second. When I went around the second time, I was like, yeah, okay. As long as you're going with your gut, you should be good. All right. And there were a few that I had to change, but I only changed them because I knew they needed to be changed. Okay. So I saw one question that I was confused about at first, so I flagged it and I picked. I narrowed it down to two, and I flagged it. And then probably about 10 or 15 questions later, I actually saw something that triggered my memory on that question. So my second pass, I knew that was one that I was going to change, and I changed it as soon as I saw it. All right. So I do recommend going through a second time if you have time, just to double check and see how you feel about those questions that you flagged. But I do not recommend changing any answers unless you know it needs to be changed, right? If you're on the fence about something, just go with the first one. Go with your gut. Go with the one that you picked originally. Right? Then that way you're not second guessing yourself. Other than that, I mean, it was a Net Plus exam. There's no secret words or anything like that that'll give you an idea of, or what I would say is just go through all the objectives and look for what you don't know, and then find a way to figure it out. And that's what I do for each exam. So you would think just get a little bit easier, as I take another one and I take another one, but it doesn't. I'm just as nervous taking that exam as I was the first time, and and clicking on that survey, all those survey questions before you find out if you pass or not is nerve wracking. Even now, when I feel like, what, I should pass this exam, but as I'm taking, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I can fail it too. It's kind of either or. But the main thing is if you get enough of those easy questions, you'll be good. All right, that's the main thing you want to do is you want to make sure you get the easy questions, the ones that you shouldn't miss. Okay, if they give you like a port question, or here, this is another one that I wanted to bring up, right? Your cabling standards. A lot of people get thrown off by this. Here's what I'm going to tell you about the cabling standards. All right, and I didn't see too many questions on this, but I did see at least one or two. All right, cabling standards is really about the speeds and the distances. That's it. What they're going to do is they're going to say you need to reach 50. I don't know. You want these type of speeds, right? So you're either talking about fast Ethernet speeds, which is 10 megs, which who would be using that in today's world, right? So Cat 3 shouldn't even be anywhere. You should just know what it is and know the standards. But yeah, we shouldn't even be looking at Cat 3 in today's society, right? So you have Cat 5, Cat 5e, Cat 6, Cat 6a, right? So what they're going to do is they're going to say, all right, you need to reach, I don't know, 40 meters. And you're looking for 10 gigabit speeds, right? So which cabling standard is going to give you that, right? So you just pick the one that you, or what is it? The lowest one, okay? The lowest one that'll be available. So in that instance, I said 40 something meters, right? And 10 gigs. You could actually use Cat 6 because you'll get 10 gigs with Cat 6 up to 55 meters, right? So if they give you anything over that, then you're going to have to go Cat 6A. All right. So when it comes to the cabling standards, just know your speeds and know your distances. Most of the speeds are the same. So it's really, and actually most of the distances are the same too. There's a few differences, but the main thing is don't get thrown off. Just make sure that you know your distances and your speeds, and then you'll know which one to pick. All right. You'll know which ones you can eliminate, and you'll know which ones that you can pick. All right. What else? We talked about troubleshooting, right? Talked about troubleshooting. Your tools, right? Make sure your tools, your 802.11 standards, speeds, features, make sure you know all those. Just know your basic networking stuff. That's what it boils down to. If you do your homework and know what you can do with each thing, and you should be all right. You should at least be able to eliminate a couple options and then just go with what's left. All right. So my overall impression of the exam is it could be easy, it could be difficult. All right. For me, it was kind of in the middle, kind of more on the difficult side, but it's passable. So just make sure you utilize a sound test taking strategy as well. That's my input. What else? Yeah, that's it for me. I don't really have anything else unless you guys have any questions. Um, Renee, what was your experience like?
Can everybody hear me all right?
Yeah.
Let's see. My experience with the exam. Know your tools. Know how to know how to read the question, what it's asking for. There was a lot of troubleshooting and a lot of tools that I had to go over. Everything, there was a lot of stuff that was easy for me. There wasn't too many subnetting or ports. That's the stuff that I was worried about the most. There wasn't really any of that. I had 4 or 5 performance-based questions, and one of them was similar to the one from the was it the U-Certify? Is it U-Certify? Yeah. No, I'm sorry. What's the other one that we go over? with all the performance stuff.
You say that again?
The not you certify. What's the other one?
Master?
CertMaster. There you go. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of it. CertMaster. Some of those on there were similar to the performance-based questions for the exam, especially about knowing what kind of antenna to use and what kind of encryption to use, the directional antennas. Um, yeah, my trouble was using a command. What uh, what printout do you get, or what's the problem if you have this printout and it has a bunch of information, but it doesn't tell you what command was used. You just kind of have to figure out what the issue is and how it was resolved. Um, yeah, so that was pretty much what I had to put up. You had to deal with on the exam that I had issues with. Um, that give you information about the network, about the speeds, the encryption, the channel it was on, and ask you questions based off of that. So
Mm-hmm.
no to when you look at two different networks or two different hosts on a network and what's different, which one of these is different, which one doesn't fit. Know the values for the mask. When the 7-second subnetting with the Professor Messer, that helped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing what the values were going to be, and then seeing a question like which one of these is correct, and you know how to, right away, just by looking at the little chart you make, you know, um, just knowing the values of what it's going to be. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. It was if everybody has the Cybex, what is it, the Cybex book, the CompTIA Network Plus Study Guide. Um, I know it's a thick book. I didn't get through all of it. I tried to, but it has a companion website and an app. So if I was away from my computer and I had my phone, I was on the app going over flashcards, practice exams. There's a lot of good information in the study guide, and it wasn't as dry as the one that we got for A plus. The A plus one was dry. This one was interesting for me. So there's a lot of good information in that book that helped me out on the exam.
Okay. Nice. Congrats again on
Thank
your pass.
thank you. Like it barely passed, but I put it in the win column.
A pass is a
Yeah.
pass. Trust me. Um, yeah, I've had some close calls too. I think my last A plus exam, like I barely passed that one, the 1002, but
Uh-huh.
I passed it. So
Yeah, I
um,
flagged a couple questions and I changed one of them, and either that one pushed me over or that one brought me closer to the line. So
yeah, that's why I don't like to change them because you never know what it's doing. Like you never know unless you know it needs to be changed. You don't know if it's pushing you up or if it's pushing you down. So then you're always
yeah,
stuck with that, especially if you end up failing. Like, okay, was it was it the one that I changed or what? So,
yeah.
but um, I want to piggyback off something that you said. I think you were talking a little about about output. Um, there were a couple questions on there that I was just like, what is that? Like I had no clue what I was looking at. I had no clue what they wanted from me. Okay, so in an instance like that, I just want to make sure that you guys don't panic on that. All right, when you're taking the CompTIA exam, there's a chance, there's a really good chance that you're going to see some questions that have nothing to do with the objectives. All right, those questions, they do not count towards your score. All right, if you're one of the people that take the time to read all that stuff at the beginning of the exam before you start it, then you should know that already. That they mentioned that there's a couple questions on there that there may be a couple questions on there that don't really pertain to the objectives. All right, do not let it throw you off. Don't let it freak you out. All right, I know it's easy to fall into that trap. I almost did because where I'm at now. I feel like I should know more. And I'm sitting there staring at something. I'm like, well, I don't know it because I didn't know I was supposed to be studying it. All right, so there's a difference between not being prepared for the exam and being asked questions that are outside of the realm of what you're supposed to be studying. All right. So just know when you see those, don't let them freak you out. Just answer it the best that you can and keep moving. All right. I've seen at least two of those questions on every CompTIA exam I've taken. There's been at least two that's just kind of it just throws you off. And it's hard to know at first that it doesn't fit because the knowledge pool is so big. So it takes you a minute to figure out, okay, this is anything that I remember. I don't remember hearing about this in Jason's training, Professor Messer's training, whatever training you're using. You didn't see any of the objectives. It's not something that counts. So don't let it throw you off. All right. I almost fell into that trap again, and I know better. But yeah, don't let it freak you out. Just keep moving. All right. Just go with what you know, and go with go with the stuff that you've been studying. And if it doesn't fit, then don't let it freak you out. Just keep moving. Answer it the best you can and keep moving. All right. Any other questions on that between myself or Renee? Renee's probably a bit fresher. He just took it today. So I think it was today, right?
Yeah, I just got back when I logged on.
Awesome. Well, man, that's how you go into the weekend, right?
Yeah.
All right.
You don't want to stress out. You don't want to stress about it over the weekend and wait until Monday to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I'd much rather do it like over the weekend.
Yeah, but I got to emphasize that book, the one that LearnKey sent us, the Networking Plus. There's I didn't want to read it because that thing's pretty thick. But I started reading it and I saw that there was a companion website and an app with a test bank and a flashcard bank, and it was really helpful. That Professor Mesler's 7-second subnetting. The video is 20 minutes, but when you're done and you learn the chart, yeah, it'll be 7 seconds to figure out what you're looking for. Yeah, I can't stress enough that the book that was sent to us. There's a lot of good information. Like I said, when I did the A plus, the book that I would fall asleep reading that book. I read the whole thing. I don't know how many naps I took, but with the Networking Plus book, it was really interesting, and I was like, oh, that's what that means. Like, oh, that's how you figure this out, and it was really good detail.
Right. That's good. That's a good advice because that's the same thing that I stress. Like I always say, use at least two different sources of information because sometimes you don't understand things as well as you will if you hear it from a different source. You'll hear, like, for instance, subnetting. It took me a while to get it at first, but when I learned it from a different source, it made so much more sense, and it was easier for me to pick up than it was the first time. So that's why I say that, always use multiple sources. Don't just try to rely on one because there's going to be you're going to pick up something from every resource, but you're not going to pick up everything from one resource. So always, keep your resources open. We already have students that do that. They're all over the place with their resources, but they understand that, and that's why. Right? We have students that they'll go out and they'll purchase different resources on their own, which is something that I most definitely would have done if I had to when I was a student. But the thing is that you understand it's not really the money that you're spending, is that you understand what what you're doing. It's an investment, right? You're making sure you're doing whatever you can to make sure that you understand the information at the level that you need to understand it, and that's important. So
yeah, it's important not to overwhelm yourself too. I'm sorry,
yeah.
I didn't. Not to overwhelm yourself. You go from too many sources, and then you study one, and then you go to the next one, and you start all over learning the same thing. And if you get it the first time on certain concepts, and then you go to your other resource and you start from the beginning again, and you go over the concepts that you already get, it's gonna get a little dry, and then you're gonna feel rushed to get to the next one and try to learn too much at once.
All right, that's a really good point. That's why, yeah, I say keep track of what you're picking up on, and then that way you don't have to go back to that stuff. Like if you know what attenuation is, then you don't have to go to Google and look for the definition again. You know, whatever. If you get it, then you get it. You just move on to the next one. So yeah, you
Yeah,
just
and then the
kind of pick and
objectives,
choose.
having the objectives printed out and to look at. Like I have a binder that I have the objectives in with notes when I test myself and looking at
Hmm.
the objectives. Like right now you have 5.3 and going down the list. Like I know what that is. I know what that is. I don't know what this is. Let me circle that and review that part. That way I'm not, you know, beating a dead horse by going over attenuation, 100 times when I learned it the first time. You know,
Right.
if you learn it, move on. Go to the next one. Don't get stuck on one area. Highlight the ones that you don't use different colors. That works for me, or whatever works for you. Use different colors. Write notes when you look at it and you can think about it. You're good. If you look at it and you're like, what is that? I don't remember learning that. Go look it up.
Right. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Any other questions on just the exam experience as a whole? What you guys can expect to see? Like I said, um, if you're going to be taking the exam anytime soon or at all, go back, watch the session we did last week. Okay. Myself, Kareem dropped a lot of gems in there. um, just some really good FYIs, and it'll give you a good idea of at least my exam. It was. I mean, there was a lot of stuff in there that I'm glad that we talked about. I feel good about it, and I think it'll help you guys too. So definitely go watch that session and take heed to a lot of the stuff that we talked about there. Okay. All right. So enough about that. Does anyone have any personal concerns or concepts that they want to talk about or they want to go over when it comes to Net Plus? Nothing, huh? They got it. Yep, everyone has it. I have it down. um, I'll tell you this. I guess I'll volunteer this. Uh, I'd expect to see more on IPv6, especially with where we're at now, because uh, when I took the 005, I was already under the impression that we were already transitioning to the point where IPv6 was going to be mainstream. So I figured by now, there'd be a lot more questions on it, but I didn't see much at all on IPv6 at all. Maybe it's something you'll see more on Cisco or something like that, but I didn't see much. Not even on truncating, which is kind of weird, but didn't see much on it. Uh, Make sure you know how to harden. Okay, it goes without being said. A lot of the times, device hardening is just common sense. It's putting a password on your on your mobile device, or using the biometrics, multi-factor authentication, anything that makes it harder for someone to get into the system. Sometimes it's as simple as disabling, shutting down ports that aren't in use, right? um, Port security, things like that. Like that's simple stuff. A lot of the times it's the answer, even when you think that it's not. But just make sure. I know this isn't a Security Plus exam, but security is implied. Security is always implied. So, um, and I'll just say it again. Like for me, Cert Master. I know a lot of people don't like it, but That was a really. I'll be honest with you. I didn't really use much more than that resource to prepare for the exam. I just kind of went through and I just kind of wanted to see where I was from the last time I took the exam. And if I would have took the exam without going through third master, could I have passed? Maybe, but I don't think I would have. I don't think I would have passed. Just going through and answering, going through each objective and getting questions about all this stuff, and then being able to say, okay, I'm good on most of this, but over here I'm a little iffy, right? Difference between a honeypot and a honey net, or whatever, penetration testing, IPV versus ID. I'm sorry, IPS, right? IDS versus IPS, right? Passive versus active, like simple stuff. That's the stuff that is easy to miss sometimes if you're not paying close attention. So just going through and reinforcing the stuff that you already know, but more importantly, like he was saying, like it's more important to find out what you don't know, right? Because then you know that you need to go do some research on it or whatever. Read up on it, Google it, watch a training video or anything, whatever. It's the stuff that you think that you do know that's a little bit more dangerous because sometimes you understand something, but maybe not to the extent that you need to. You know what I mean? So, but identifying the stuff that you don't know, that's really an important thing because now okay, I need to go do some research on this or whatever and figure it out. So, yeah, you know what? I didn't write anything down. I tried to, when the lady was still trying to set up the thing, I was trying to write down the subnetting chart. And she was like, no, you can't do that. It's brain dumping. I'm like, okay, so I'll just do it when you leave and it'll still be brain dumping. I mean, you call it what you want. It's not brain dumping. I'm just creating a reference chart, right? So just be careful of that too. I don't know if any of you have encountered that yet, but some facilities, if you try to write something down on that whiteboard before you start the exam, they're going to call it brain dumping. Okay, so just be wary of that. That's the first time that I've come across that. Check your mic, sir. Okay. Yeah, she said I was brain dumping. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I just waited till she left, and then I didn't even put it down. So here's my thoughts on that. If you're already in the exam room and you can write something on the board, then you don't need to write it. It's in your head, right? Whatever you write on that dry erase board, once you sit down and you take the exam, it's already in your head. So you really don't need to write it unless it's like a quick reference thing, like the subnetting chart, right? Like that, I will always write that down, even though subnetting, like at this point, I really don't need to write it down. The last two exams I did, but even if you don't need to write it down, to have a quick reference, it saves time. And for me, that's worth taking the time to write it down. If it's going to save time, right? I know that a /26 is going to give me 64 addresses at 62 hosts, right, off the top of my head. But it's always good to have that confirmation to say, okay, I know it in my head, and if I look down and I see, okay, it says the same thing there. Okay, good. It's just that kind of reinforcement thing, and it saves you the time of having to do it. Now, my first exam, when I was taking the 005, I was actually like subnetting. I was bitwise anding and everything. That's what I was using a chart for. So when I got like a subnetting question, I took the time and actually wrote it out and did it. Okay, so if you feel like you have to do that, then do it. But at the same time, like if I write down that HTTP is port 80, then you already know it. You don't really need to write that down. It's just the stuff that you're iffy on, right? Maybe you're confused about IMAP and HTTPS, right? Because you have 143 and 443, right? So those two, I can see you doing that on that one because it's easy to get those confused. You have the 143 and the 443, okay, right? Especially if they give you a question and both of them are there, right? It's easy to kind of confuse those sometimes. So little stuff like that I would write down, but I wouldn't like spend 10 minutes just writing down everything that's in your head because it's already in there. So what I like to do is if I can get there like 10 minutes early, I try to go through these objectives and find something that's not in my head, right? And then I say, okay, so when I get in there, this is what I'm gonna write, right? I'm gonna write this down, or I'm gonna write this down. I try to remember something that I have a hard time remembering, and that's the type of stuff that I want to write down on the little whiteboard. Okay. Uh, what else? I'm trying to think of something else that caught me off guard. That I was a little irritated by. Like at first, I was irritated by the wording, and I should be used to it by now. But I was still, there were a few questions earlier. I'm sitting there like, what the hell? What are they? What are they asking? Um, but you settle down. You just get used to it. After a while, it's just okay. I know what they're doing. I'm just looking for the keywords. I'm looking for the answers. And if I don't know the answers, then I'm looking immediately for what I can eliminate. When I know that the answer isn't. Okay, that's that's my test taking strategy, and I think that plays a role in these exams too. Is you have to have a strategy. Don't just go in there and wing it. All right, it's kind of hard to do that with these exams. You have to have a strategy. All right, so mine is either I know the answer or I don't for each one. Okay, sometimes I know the answer. Sometimes I know the answer by default because I know it's none of the other ones. Okay, and those are just as valuable. So that's why I say I try to. It kind of sounds what do you call it? I can't think of the word right now. Kind of sounds soft, right? From hearing that from me saying do your homework. Um, but what I'm saying is, if you have a good understanding for a router and its capabilities, and you have a good understanding for a switch and its capabilities and the hub, right? It's easy to eliminate. They say which of these is the layer 3 device. If I understand what a hub and a switch do, it's easy for me to eliminate those. You know what I mean? And even if I don't know that, okay, they're trying to point me to a router, at least I can say I know that they're not pointing me towards the switch and the hub. So router at least is still in play, right? Um, and so I think that strategy is important as well because you're not always going to know the answer to every question, but if you can at least narrow down your possibilities, okay, and it just helps, right? Sometimes that's the difference between getting that 723 and that 718. You know what I mean? One is a pass and one is a failure. Either way, you did good on the exam. But I've seen it a lot. That was my first exam. I felt like I think it was like 10 points or something. That one was hard to swallow because you're like right there, and now you have to go back to the drawing board and you have to start all over and go do it again. All right. But, okay. Um. So no one else has anything. You guys are good. Renee said 723. Hoorah. Was that your score? Hey, that's all. Hey, that's all you needed. All you needed was that good old 720. So, hey, like I said, a pass is a pass. And seriously, so the last A plus exam that I just took 1002. Okay, I think the passing score was a 700. I think I scored a 704. All right, so I like barely passed. All right, but a pass is a pass, and I don't throw none back. These exams they're pretty difficult. So as long as you answer enough right, then you pass. Okay. Any other questions, concerns on Net Plus? I think I did a pretty decent job. Really, to be honest with you, the best thing that you can do for yourself to be prepared for this exam is use these objectives. I mean, I can tell you everything that I saw on my exam. It doesn't mean that you're going to see it. It doesn't guarantee you're going to see what I saw. I can guarantee you that me and Renee probably had a few similar questions, probably had a few of the same questions. I can guarantee you that we have some different questions, right? So, you know, the best way to prepare is just to use the objectives, hit each and every area, and if you have a general understanding for all this stuff, you have a really good chance of passing. All right, that's my take on it. All right. Um, I don't really have anything else today. That's pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions, if you want to like just chop it up with me one on one about my experience, what I saw, some of the things that you can do to help prepare, just give me a call or shoot me an email. I'll gladly chop it up with you. Give you my spill on things. Um, so I apologize for the confusion on the link. If some of you got the link to the Teams meeting, I'll be starting that next week. So I wanted to avoid confusion, so that's why I stuck with the GoToMeeting link today. But I think the Teams meeting link found a way out there in the world anyway. So I apologize if you got the link for that. But starting next week, we'll be using the Teams link. So GoToMeeting is done. We won't be using this resource anymore. We'll be moving to the Teams starting next week and moving forward. Also, for those of you that weren't here earlier when I was talking about this, Sec Plus is being moved to Fridays starting actually today. So if any of you are planning on attending Sec Plus, hopefully you got the invite for that. That will be run by Justin. I think his name is Coleman. I formerly spoke with him on a couple occasions, but he is a former LearnKey student. Okay, so he understands the process and the things that you guys have gone through. He has taken all of the CompTIA exams, so he's knowledgeable in A plus, Net plus, and Security plus. Most recently, Security plus, so it's still a little bit more fresh for him than it would be for me. I will be taking it soon, but I'm actually going to be taking it after our research. I'm going to research using the Cert Master method. So I'm going to research first, and then I'm actually going to go take the exam. Okay. So you know that way I'll be able to speak to that exam as well. But for the future, for the foreseeable future, he's going to be handling Security plus stuff. So I don't know if that pertains to any of you right now. Maybe some of you will be moving to Net plus, Security plus after Net plus, but I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up on that. Okay, this session should be starting in about an hour, and I don't have the link. So hopefully, if you are going to be attending that, or if you want to, just get with your SSR, and they should be able to get the link over to you. Okay. So a lot of changes as of late, but they're for the good. Okay. I mean, this is what I've been trying to get for you guys for a while, so everyone's not depending on me so much. So we have a lot of different areas now. My main area, eventually, I think will be networking. Sooner or later, I think I'll be handing off A plus as well, and then I'll be focusing more on networking, and then some IC&D stuff too. So that's my goal, is to I want to be able to help you guys a little bit more with IC&D. I understand it, the concepts. I understand configurations and a lot of the IC&D stuff, but I'm not certified. Okay, so I would feel a lot more better about helping people that are trying to get that once I get certified. So that'll be my next goal. Once I get done with security, I'll be moving on to the CCNA and getting those certs. All right, so that's what I have planned for the future anyway. And Kareem, Tristan, are you working on your CCNA? No, not yet. So like I said, I'm gonna knock out Sec Plus first. I need to renew my Sec Plus, and then when I'm done with that, then I'll be moving on to CCNA. So
Hey Tristan, you do know that they're changing the CCNA, starting the test to be different on the 24th of February of next year, and
yeah,
it's going to be a lot harder. than the current one. So, my thing is just like if you're not, let's say knowledgeable on automation and some of those other things, because basically they're combining all the other disciplines into one exam. And so, yeah, so it's like if you can knock it out beforehand, like let's say get your CCNA out the way, and you'll be squared away. They'll grandfather you and you'll get the new one. But if not, then basically you're gonna have to jump in there, But maybe as an instructor, maybe that's probably best for you. But yeah, I'm trying to get mine out the way ASAP.
Right. How you doing with that so far?
I kind of like took a little break, like we talked about. I've been, like I said, I come in here, hang out with you guys, what have you, and just kind of like picking my spots or what have you. I just needed a break. I went, basically a year nonstop of doing IT stuff. So I'm trying to get back into the swing thing. Like for instance, when I get off of here, I'm going to update my routers and for the month, and then get back and do a couple labs within my one of the deals that I bought. Similar to Learning Key, but it's through Udemy, and so I'm just going to go through a couple of things and try to get back into it this weekend. So.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
So,
But
go ahead.
No, I was just saying I know we had talked and I wasn't for sure, who in here was thinking about getting their CCNA. And I know I mentioned it before, but it was just like I said, if it's, anybody who's close to getting a CCNA or what have you, then you want to go ahead and knock it out before February 24th of next year. And if you don't believe me, YouTube changes so you can see what's going on. Because like I said, it's a lot of different concepts in the new exam. And, if like for most of us, we're new to most of this stuff. So, it's kind of hard in one discipline. Now you're talking about throwing maybe 8 or 9 more at us.
Right. I hear you. Yeah, that's good info. They kind of have something like that now, right? There's kind of 2 ways to get CCNA certified. There's the 2 test method, right? Where they kind of split the material up, and then there's actually one test that kind of combines all the material. And you get to choose which one you want to do.
Yeah, but this the new format is totally different. I know what you're saying. So you don't have to take all of everything at once. You got the troubleshooting side, and then you got the CSense side. For the first exam, what have you. But the next exam is not like that. It's you have security. Like if let's say you had your CCNA, right, or certain things, and it's like, okay, now I want to branch off and I want to get my CCNA like we're doing networking, right? And then you got your CCNA for security, CCNA for cloud, stuff like that. All of those are basically going to be combined into one exam. And so that's and the reason why they said that they've updated the exam was that they did a survey in the industry and people employers. This is where everything is going. It's like there's a lot of automation within networking and other let's say programming and stuff like that. So if you're not into that type of stuff, it's about to be in your face, because that's what employers are wanting. So what they're doing is saying, okay, now we're going to create a new standard. We're going to give you, the folks that are coming out, they're going to have a general knowledge, working knowledge of all these areas. You see what I'm saying? And that's what the new exams do. So it's hard enough to learn, like I said, like we're doing the CompTIA A plus, Network plus, Security plus, and everybody, we have our different struggles with different ones. But now you're talking about an exam that's going to encompass about 9 principles. So you can only imagine how much harder the test is going to be. So I mean, you can pat yourself on the back, anybody who takes it and passes and say, hey, I did it. But what I'm saying is that it's it's going to get a lot harder. So for anybody in here who's actually thinking about getting their CCNA or CCNP, don't listen to me. Go ahead and YouTube it, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's like they've said the change is coming, and that those are some of the reasons why. And like I said, you have other people who are the experts. They'll give you a more detailed explanation on why they're making the changes.
Gotcha. Good info. Appreciate that, Kareem.
Is there? Because I know that applies to you and I. I don't know if anybody else in here is trying to go into CCNA.
I think Kelly's working on CCNA right now. Either Kelly or Abby. I can't remember. I think it's Kelly, yeah, because so CCNA is it's the first part of CCNA.
Gotcha.
Right.
So we're basically in the same area, and so she knows. Well, I don't know if she knew about it, but like I said, if you're going that route, but if not, and you're in here just basically trying to get these three, the trio of CompTIA certs out the way, then disregard what I just said.